I want to move now to ABC's Selena Wang, who is traveling with President Biden in Rehoboth, Delaware. Selena, tell us what more you're learning and how this all came together. I'm hearing you may have word from Ron Klain.
Yeah, Rachel, I mean, you can only imagine how all of this is playing out for President Biden. He had to get off the campaign trail. He is isolated here in COVID. He had been trying before that point to do everything he could to prove to the American people, to prove to these Democratic lawmakers in Congress that he has the stamina to stay in this race. Then all of that came to a halt. And right when that came to a halt, you had mounting concerns. You had mounting data showing that things were not moving in the right direction. Now, President Biden is a stubborn person. I've spoken to many of his aides who say that for any regular decision, he wants a lot of data, he wants a lot of information. So you can only imagine how much thinking and rumination it took for him to get to this point. And I want to read something that's very telling. This is a tweet from Ron Klain. He's a former White House chief of staff. He's also a close Biden advisor. And this gives you a window into the thinking of his inner circle. Quote, now that the donors and electeds have pushed out the only candidate who has ever beaten Trump, it's time to end the political fantasy games and unite behind the only veteran of a national campaign, our outstanding VP Kamala Harris. Let's get real and win in November. Now, what I really want to point out there is the quote, pushed out. And that is something, that sentiment is something I've been hearing from a lot of my sources in recent days, which is they feel this is a coordinated campaign from donors, the Democratic elite, who believe that President Biden does not have what it takes. But as of last night, top campaign officials were telling me they still believe there was a path forward because they thought there was a divide between what the Democratic elite believed, what this donor class believed, and what they felt people on the ground believed. But of course, that data, that polling only mounting, so President Biden obviously came to this decision after seeing a lot of data. But I do want to point out one more thing, which is how this is going to resonate with voters. I've been talking to a lot of them in battleground states as I've been traveling with the president. And for some of them who have turned away from President Biden because of some of their policies, they tell me that a Harris at the top of the ticket wouldn't change their mind because they see them as part of the same administration. In particular, that is their view when it comes to those who are frustrated over the president's policy towards Israel and the war in Gaza. They hold Harris to the exact same account as President Biden.
Selena, thank you. I want to go back to our chief Washington correspondent, John Carl. And John, we were doing some reporting earlier today, and I was told by sources in the Trump campaign that they were preparing for all sorts of scenarios, including for a scenario that President Biden would step aside, that next step would be Vice President Kamala Harris. And they were already starting to build these opposition research books about who her potential running mate could be. Do we have any idea at this point? There are definitely a lot of Democrats with presidential ambitions on who could possibly be on that short list.
As you can imagine, Rachel, I've been talking for, now a couple of weeks about, to Democrats about this very scenario, including, who would likely be Kamala Harris's running mate. And a few names came up over and over again. One name I would put right near the top of the list to write down is Roy Cooper. He is the Democratic governor of North Carolina. He is a Democrat who has managed to get elected in a state that is a battleground state that leans Republican, and a state that Democrats think they have a real chance of winning this year. They did not win last time. They did not win the last two times. North Carolina's been pretty reliably Republican in presidential races, but they believe they came within just over 1% of winning it last time. They think that they have a chance this time. So Roy Cooper is a name I would put right near the top of your list. Another Democratic governor, Andy Beshear of Kentucky, once again, a moderate a Democrat who has managed to win in a state that is, in the case of Kentucky, really dominated by Republicans. Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, I would put high on that list. And some of the names that you've seen as potential replacements for Biden would now fit into this category as well. Gretchen Whitmer, Wes Moore of governor of Maryland. These are some of the names that have been circulating, and I think will all be seriously considered by Kamala Harris, as she makes, in very short order, will need to make a decision about her running mate.
Yeah, and John, let's just talk about the timing here, because this is not a decision that she's going to have weeks or months potentially to make. She's going to have to make this decision fairly quickly, because we are so close to the election and so close to the convention.
Yeah, and the convention is in the middle of August. The Democrats have established a virtual roll call. Now, they can always change this, but they were to formalize their nominees on August 1st. But remember, Rachel, you know this because you've tracked this before, in the last cycle. The process of picking a vice president isn't just, who should I pick? That's a good person. It's an intensive vetting. There are, potential running mates go through the ringer as a law firm is hired. They go and they basically investigate themselves to find out what could be used, if there's anything in a potential running mate's background that could come out over the course of the campaign that could be detrimental. So there's very little time to do vetting here. And there's very little time to decide anyway, but to do the decision plus the vetting, Kamala Harris has to be thinking about this right now. And my hunch is, even though she didn't get that call from President Biden until just a short while ago that he was opting out of the race, my hunch is she's already been thinking about this.
John Karl, thank you. I want to go back to our ABC's Martha Raddatz. Martha, you have known President Biden for a very long time. You did that debate with him back in 2012. There's been so many Democrats that have come out and said that he is not essentially the same person. We even heard from Congressman Seth Moulton, who said that President Biden didn't even recognize him when he saw him just a few weeks ago.